Welcome back to the Fall into Tech podcast, hosted by myself, Michael Rodriguez, and my co-host, Jamil Matin, two Marines turned techies. On this podcast, we chat with fellow vets about their journey from military to tech, as well as other technology professionals to help you with your tech career.
Yeah, tune in weekly. We're pumping out podcasts every single week. So definitely tune in for guest interviews where we discuss, specific tech roles, career paths, and tips for succeeding in tech. And this week we have Tony Herrera. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here.
Yeah, so Tony, to give everyone his background, he's a Navy corpsman turned machine learning engineer. I think I first met Tony when I was mentoring him when he was first breaking into tech. So it's great to see him level up and see his career evolved. So yeah, we kind of like to break the ice, Tony. So do you have a fun fact about yourself that you can share with the audience here?
Yeah, it's fun, but probably in a different way. Kind of fun, right? As we know in the military, it's fun but different. So I still like running. I still like being active, and I've actually got myself. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but doing a half marathon here, Veterans Day, November 11th, down in Coronado Island. It's the Silver Shores half marathon. So just kind of getting after it. Still doing just the crazy thing, day in, day out. So yeah, fun but different.
Nice. Yeah, and Jamil mentioned you were Navy corpsman. Jamil and I were Marines. We have a lot of respect for corpsmen. Obviously, served with a bunch of them. All been great. Now, can you tell us a little bit of why you chose the Navy and why corpsman, if that was your option?
Yeah, so I think it started initially with my mom. So she, I grew up in a single parent home. My mom went to nursing school and, worked and did that thing and was in the medical field. So I was kind of around that environment. And then the military aspect came. I have a lot of uncles serving in the military, from Marines to Army, to Navy. But my one uncle, Mark, he was a retired Marine. And I was just in a position of life where I needed to change, like a lot of us. I needed something different. I needed to get out of Chicago. I grew up in the inner city of Chicago, and what I was doing just wasn't cutting it. It wasn't going to take me to that next level. And I called him up and asked him, "Hey, I'm thinking about joining the military. What do you think?" And he said, "Yeah, with your background, and what you like to do, there's a great place in the Navy for you. Become a Navy corpsman. You can still do cool Marine stuff, but you're Navy." And so you can kind of get away with a little bit more. The regs aren't as intense, if you choose to. So I was, okay, I was like, all right, let's get after it. So I was working at Whole Foods at the time. So I ended up quit my job, went to the recruiter and signed the paperwork and, got into the military. And, my whole reasoning for even joining as well was to be part of the medical field, but also, it's just kind of maybe odd, but I wanted to get deployed. I wanted to kind of find value and purpose. And I knew that the military could offer that kind of thing. I knew it could kind of give me a bigger picture than what I was doing in Chicago. And so, that's just kind of like a tidbit of kind of why I joined the military.
Nice. And yeah, I guess staying on the military, can you tell us what years you served, any units you want to mention, any cool story you want to mention? Just general kind of military.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I definitely think it was probably one of the most fun times of my life, but fun in a different kind of way. I think that's like a reoccurring theme. I've always kind of joke with people, especially that are civilians, but like my brothers and sisters in the military, they get it. You know how it is. And so I served from 2015 to 2020. I did one contract, and it was a good time. I went to training at Great Lakes, and then did my corpsman training at Fort Sam, and then I became a Hollywood corpsman. And so I went out to Camp Pendleton. That's pretty much where I cut my teeth, because I started there, and then I also came back and ended there out of medical battalion. So I was attached to 1st Medical Battalion, and did my time there, and just it was actually while I was there is kind of how I found my interest in tech, kind of an odd way, but yeah. So that's kind of a summary of my time in the military. But yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I guess before we move into tech, is there, anything you really enjoyed or anything you maybe not so enjoyed being a doc or being in the military in general?
yeah. I mean, I loved it. I love being a doc. I love being a corpsman. It was just just the fulfillment and the responsibility that you had for being the corpsman to 20 to 30 Marines. That kind of look to you, that that talk to you, maybe that shared a little bit too much, showed a little bit too much. Hey doc, what's this? It's like, dude, don't go to that place anymore. Stay away. Stop. Leave that girl alone. And all the different shots we had to give the guys, and but also and the blue side as well. Just the camaraderie with other corpsmen, and just the love that we had. We were all in the in the thick of it, but I think the camaraderie is hard to find. It's hard to find outside of the military, outside of that community, unless you're into something that is engaging, and whether that's like, MMA or something where there's like a challenge or like an adversity that you have to overcome. That's physical in nature. It's kind of unparalleled in my opinion. So that's what I kind of miss, and that's what I do mostly enjoy and kind of reminisce about my times in the military. It's just the people, the dumb things that we did, but the fun times that we had. The stories that we'll always be able to tell, and then the pride that we'll always have. That I mean, it's unspoken, but it's you served your country. You did your duty, whether it was 5 years, 20 years. We all have done our time in our own capacity. So
Great. Yeah, and I guess ultimately, why did you decide to leave the service and pursue something else?
yeah, so I was while I was in, I was I always wanted to get after it. I always wanted to better myself, and so I ended up going to the community college while I was active, and I took my first A&P class, and a lot of that stuff is we've done it throughout our course in our time in getting our instruction, our training, but this was a little bit different, and it was kind of during that time when I started. At the time was my girlfriend getting really serious, and I was wondering, if this was the life that I wanted to live, thinking about my future, because I wanted kids. We both wanted children, and we were thinking, is this something that we really want to do, that I want to do? And believe it or not, I actually ended up failing my first AP course, my anatomy and physiology course. I ended up failing it. I just was just so busy with work or just other things that I just didn't make time for it, unfortunately. And I think that kind of bogged me down. And at the time I was like, okay, I got to pivot. I got to get my degree, because the way I see it, I'm getting out here soon. And so I just went for the easiest degree that I can get. And that was a criminal justice degree. So I was like, all right, a lot
Me,
of
me
those
too.
credits
Me too.
over. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, all right, let's get it, and the bases are pretty accommodating. So I was like, all right. And I went that route. And while I was in, I had my first child, my daughter, Ava. She was born in 2019. And, I was like, okay, criminal justice degree, getting out. I don't want to go to school, because I had that scar of failing the class. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to go back and do that. So I was like, well, let's try to go the criminal justice route. Let's try to become a police officer. And then when I was getting out in 2020, it was a crazy time, because that was a time of like the George Floyd riots. And I mean, people don't like cops, but especially at that point, people hated cops, man. And I was like, yo, I got a kid, I got a family, I'm just not about that life. I got to find something else, because there's got to be something where I can provide for my family, and not put my life in danger every single day. And so a buddy of mine, who's also a corpsman, was like, yo, you have to check out this program. It's a coding boot camp, just check it out, and he had gotten out a year before I did. And the rest is history. And interestingly enough, too, there was a guy I met on base while I was studying for my Security Plus exam. I just walked up to him. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, this guy looks like a nerd. It looks like he's probably into computers. And so I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, by any chance, are you in tech?" And we were over there pumping our gas, and he's like, and I remember we were over there by the if you've ever been to Camp Pendleton, we were in the 21 area, so right across the air station, and we were pumping our gas there. At least there was a gas station there. I think there's a Dunkin' Donuts there now, but we're pumping our gas, and he looks at me, he's like, what? But yeah, he's like, yeah, I actually do. I actually do work in tech. And that also mentorship, and he helped me point in the right direction for where I'm at now. And his name is Otis. And Otis, he's probably, I think he's probably Army, but now he's a principal engineer somewhere, doing a good thing. And but yeah, he definitely helped me, provide me guidelines, and also just kind of provide that confirmation that this is definitely the route to go. So yeah,
It's incredible, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Remind me, which coding boot camp did you go through? And yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, so the coding boot camp that I went to is based out of Colorado, and this coding boot camp is called Skilled Distillery, and they at the time were doing remote because, again, that was during the time of COVID, but they were previously all in person, and so that was like the first or second year that they were doing it remotely. And at the same time, the GI Bill flipped during that time, and it allowed for people who were distance learning to get that full-time BAH. So to me, I was like, man, this is money in the bank. This is I get to collect unemployment and BAH, so I can provide for my family. So to me, it was like this is a win-win. And the structure of the coding bootcamp was it was the beginning was logic based. There's like logic questions, kind of understanding your capacity, almost like a I don't want to say an IQ test, but a aptitude. I'll say more so like an aptitude test to kind of just confirm like, hey, this is something you can kind of get into, and if you put forth the effort, you could probably do it. But that was kind of how it started, and then intro to object-oriented programming, understanding the building blocks of what it is to code. I remember looking at my first for loop, how to construct it, thinking, what the heck am I doing? I don't speak computer. Give me some, some sutures, give me some gauze, or something. I can work with my hands. But this is like, trying to type and logically program a computer. I'm like, yeah, this is brand new to me. I don't know how to do this. So it's definitely like banging my head against the wall for a while in the beginning there.
Yeah, it's so foreign to like, field work or groundwork. But remind me, how did we get connected? I remember, our mentorship sessions clearly, but I forget if it was through a coding bootcamp or if it was through the hackathon or Operation Code or another like Veterati or something. Do you remember? Or
yeah, I mean, like there's like I'll say it so many times. I mean, there's been so many people, man, who have blessed me with just putting me on the right path, give me the right direction, and other veterans, that have been like, hey, here's a good resource, here's a good plug, this is how you do it, and it's that community. And a guy named Michael Rodriguez, I know another Michael Rodriguez, the guy, he was actually running Operation Code, and he somehow I got connected with him actually through another guy, and I was just new to LinkedIn, and so I'm just out there acting like it's MySpace or something, 1999, just messaging everybody that has tech and veteran in their LinkedIn header, and be like, hey, can you help me out? Hey, what do I do? How do I code? And basically jumped on that platform, Operation Code, started digging around to some of the subgroups, and yeah, somehow we connected through that. I think I might have said hi, and you said, hey, my name's Jamil, come check out Fall In. And I was like, I ran with it. I was like, yo, let's go. Let's do it. Yeah, it's crazy.
very cool, man.
Yeah, and I guess before we kind of go off the coding bootcamp stuff, all three of us here have been to coding bootcamps, and I feel like sometimes it may get a little glamorized of like, hey, just go to a coding bootcamp, sit through a couple hours of classes and you'll like go be a software engineer. But, as you have to put in a lot of hours in trying to understand the information, a lot of hours outside of the general just teaching in during the day. Can you walk a little bit through kind of the schedule you were on and how it works to actually attend a boot camp?
Yeah. So again, coming from a non-traditional background, I my scenario probably is going to look a lot different than most people. Most people, at least in the coding class that I was a part of, oh yeah, I do HTML, CSS. Oh yeah, I wrote a project before, and that wasn't me, man. That was not me. So typically, you had your classes starting from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, and that time was instruction, application, and that was 5 days a week. And you were expected to do a project over the weekend and have it ready to go by Monday. For me, it wasn't just 8 to 5. For me, it was like 8 to 8, 8 to 9. I mean, again, this stuff was foreign to me. And if I was going to make it, I needed to put in 15-hour days, 16, 17-hour days. And, it's kind of like those things we learned back in the military. Sometimes you just have to kind of dig deep. And, when you're on post, it's like, hey, you got to dig deep. You got to be here for 24 hours. And it might be more, but just, get comfy. And just kind of having that mentality and kind of falling back to that mentality of just that grit and tenacity, I think is what kind of helped me get through those 15 hour days, and then even extending into the weekend, and having a kid, having to try to be there with my wife and child, and it's stressful. It's definitely stressful, and being able to see like just the payout, the hopeful payout, right? Because like you said, it's not 100%. Like they put that on their website as a disclaimer. Hey, no job is guaranteed, right? You're not guaranteed a job upon graduation. And yeah, I mean, it is on me. It is on us, right? And so as I went through those long days, those projects, and I feel like even after I graduated, man, like I felt like I'm barely scratching the surface on this stuff. Like there's people that are still way more advanced than I am, and I'm still like barely understanding these logical concepts and applying them, because it just 6 months moves by so fast. I mean, because you're moving on to one topic to the next topic to the next topic, and it's a fire hose. It's that fire hose load of information. But it was at that time when I was reaching out to people like Jamil, like Michael, Otis, other people, and I was building my network, building, because I knew that based on what people were telling me, that hey, dude, okay, you're a vet, okay, you're learning coding, good job. And I remember this guy Ron Savanda. He's like, listen, dude, he's a former Army Ranger, and he's another dude that turned tech. He's probably the most straight up guy with me. But he's like, listen, dude, you're not special. Which your background, there's a million other people like that in the job market right now looking for something like you. Find your goal, work backwards, reverse engineer it, and then get after it. And, he's like, I don't know what you want me to do to help you, but that's what I would do. That's what I did. And, it's just straight up advice, and I think for me, I took it and ran with it, because I was like, okay, I just got to work harder. I got to work harder than everybody else, and, grow my network. And so that's, it's kind of what I did. Just grew my network and learn how to talk to recruiters. And that's and I started taking interviews during my time in the coding bootcamp. Just started taking interviews. I was like, I'm probably not going to get this job, but I'm going to take an interview and, probably fail the tech interview. But hey, I'm just getting that experience, getting kind of like, my feet wet. And, I ended up being like the first person in my class to get a job, partly because I was like, yeah, unemployment's running out, and I got a mortgage. I got to provide for my family somehow, and yeah. So I was like, all right, let's get it. So
Nice. Yeah. Sounds like you leveraged networking a lot. One thing I was lacking a bit was people to talk to about tech stuff when I was getting out, because no one I knew was getting into tech or was in tech. Part of the reason also we start this podcast to try to get information out there about different tech roles. But was there anything you felt was really lacking while you were trying to get into tech at all?
yeah, and I still think even now, but it's just and maybe this is because I'm the person that likes to have like answers, like a detailed answers, but like a roadmap and a within like TAPS, like a roadmap to technical success, right, in the tech sector. And saying, hey, these are communities, organizations that you can reach out to, that you can, I wish I knew about Operation Code or Fall In when I was going through TAPS. If anything, it trying to transition, and I'm sure it's probably many of you who probably listen to this, trying to transition and do something better for yourself. Sometimes the military doesn't like that too much. Sometimes they'd rather you just stay in and, not go and venture off into something else. And so if there was a way that those opportunities and resources were more readily made available, instead of like trying to do my job, trying to get study from an FMF pin, and all those things, if it was just kind of saying, hey, here's a link, join this group of people that are in tech, right? Because it's popular, it's growing. If that existed, that'd probably save me a lot of time and just randomly calling people. Yeah.
Definitely, man. Walk us through that first role you had and all the other tech roles you've had so far. We want to hear about, the skills needed, the team sizes for all these different roles. We want to know the day in the life of what tools, languages. Let's start there.
Yeah. So the first job I had was a modernization effort. And so basically what that means is there's a legacy code base. So there's code that's written in a language that's being more outdated, and there's a more efficient, updated, effective way to do the thing that you want to do. And that modernization effort was to take what's called AngularJS and transform it into the more modernized React. So developing like microservices, and integrating APIs and all that sort of thing. And so as my first role, I was a junior Java full stack developer. Didn't really know what that meant. That was the role. And I was learning Java in the coding bootcamp. But when I got on the project, they're like, no, that's for the more senior guys. You're going to be learning React. And so I was on a team of about 5 people total, many of them just different backgrounds, nationalities. And so again, that military culture kind of already prepared me for just working with people who speak differently than I do, right? It was a good, it wasn't something I was like thrown into and, oh man, this guy has a crazy accent, I can't understand what he's saying. Like, no, I've been there, done that. Okay, what's new? So, because in tech, you'll kind of have that, especially if you're working with people overseas. There's a lot of people who contract work that are going to speak not clear, fluent English, and so that's something that not a lot of people talk about, but it is a real factor, especially in remote settings. Just a little side note there, but what we did in day in and day out was write React, learn how to write React scripts, and I found a lot of the time React is very helpful because it's a popular coding framework, and there's a lot of documentation already made for it. But the team that I had, I'm so grateful for. Guys like Connor, people like Oxa, people like Luke. These people really took me under their wing. I was the true junior developer. A lot of these people had 15, 20 years experience. Luke, he was a former one of the breakout guys when Monster was finally breaking out. He was on their page and part of that development effort. So I learned a lot from Luke. Luke was more the technical lead. Oxa was more the managerial, but also she was a lead developer, but she was the one who kind of took me aside and explained things to me more conceptually, and helped me get that mapping down right when I didn't know how to map or didn't really understand how to bring these things together. She would help me, go through the code line by line. That was kind of her job, and to kind of help me to understand that. And then I had guys who were, mid-level engineers, guys like Connor, guys like Elliot, who would really just show me the ropes. And it wasn't just like talking code. Like we talk life, and even though, and it's weird, I'll tell you, it's the weirdest thing in my life. But I've never seen these people before in my life. It sounds strange, but working in remotely, a lot of times people don't have their cameras on, and so I've never seen anybody on that team before. It's weird. It's strange, man. But just over the time that we spent, going through challenges, but also just talking about life, we grew pretty close. We grew pretty close as a team, and some of the the technical things that we had done was, learning how to, institute Docker, learning containerization, and that was like a brief thing. Understanding what Postman is, what is Postman? I've never used Postman before my time, show me how to, leverage Postman, DB Beaver, SQL, all these things that were just kind of coming, like, because you learn things in the coding bootcamp, but it's kind of by a book. And I guess it's like, any career path. It's like, hey, there's a book way to do it, and then there's a way we do it in real life. And, and an enterprise application, they're like, hey, this is the real life way to do things. This is how you manage these systems, right? And you have to kind of, have the tech stack, have the SDLC, the software development lifecycle in place. You have to understand that, you can't just do a CrowdStrike thing and push to prod. Right, there's role-based accessibility controls in place that make sure that somebody doesn't do something crazy like that, right? And my first role was just I was like a sponge, man, just growing and learning as much as I could every day. And you know what? I'll be honest too. Like, the coding bootcamp days were challenging and hard and long, but even that first job, like, it was still challenging and long and stressful. Banging my head against the keyboard, like, I cannot figure this out, and I'm tired of asking this person for help. I need to be able to figure this thing out if I'm going to be in this job title, in this role. And something that, it's pretty popular in our community called imposter syndrome comes up. Every day I probably struggle with it, multiple times a week, multiple times a day. When I tell you this stuff is like challenging for me to figure out, like coding, like I don't speak that language naturally. That's the God honest truth, man. This did not come naturally to me. Like, and it's a challenge. It's tough, but I think just, the more reps that you do, the more time you spend in it, at least for me, my brain just kind of understands it a little bit more. Like, it makes a little bit more sense. Like, okay, that's how that for loop works, or just different examples like that. Right. Obviously there's larger, but for those who are looking to get in, those things will start to make sense. It's just, you got to put the time.
Definitely, man. Lots of reps and sets. And walk us through some of the other roles you had after your first role.
Yeah. And so while I was working that role, I started looking for other places. To kind of like, okay, I was like, okay, I've been here. I've been here for a little bit now, and I'm kind of looking to make that next, transition. I kind of want to, get that salary bump. I kind of want to get a new experience. And again, I just think this is a testament to networking. So through my network, somebody referenced me, and I got a call from a company, which is the company that I'm at today. And they said, hey, do you want to come work on this technology that's, implementing AI and machine learning technologies? And, as a year and a half in, I was like, heck yeah, like, let's get it. Like, let's do it. Sure. And, that opportunity has really just brought me to where I'm at now. So kind of a timeline. I got my first job January 4th, 2021. I had graduated coding bootcamp December 17th, 2020. And when I got the call for that job, or I should say when I started my job at RSDC, it was April 11th, 2021. So a year and about 4 months I had been working in the industry. And now I have this new opportunity to work in a different capacity. The business is a small veteran-owned business. And, we get to work with cognitive AI technology. And, that's implementing speech-to-text, text-to-speech engines, understanding some neural interfaces, understanding, intent recognition, entity development, entity triggering, things that relate to ontology of the human language, things that relate to, teaching code or teaching machines, teaching programs how to think like humans and have interactions, have conversations. And, I jumped into that. And I had great people, some of them who are still working with me today, but, guys like Brian and Ryan, who from day one, were super helpful and kind of took me under their wing and showed me the ropes and how this stuff works. And a lot of the framework is based on Java. So the framework is Java, but also a lot of the scripting can be done in Groovy. And we take Amazon Web Services, some of the machine learning technologies, we leverage that for our environment. And the name of the program that we're working on is the NESD Project, so the Navy Enterprise Service Desk. And what we're doing is we're consolidating what started out to be about 70 to 80 different help desks, and we're making it a one-stop shop where everyone from a chat text to a voice perspective will integrate with our cognitive agent named Amelia, and they'll be able to more rapidly get their issues addressed. And the idea is to kind of limit the time that the sailor is down, whether they are, for those of you who are Navy, everything is done through INSIPs, right? And if you're locked out of your INSIPs account, it could take a day or 2 days. And so our whole objective is to reduce that time to, rapidly get that sailor back to the fight. And the way that's done is we have integrations, we build out our APIs. And a lot of it, some people say it's the wild, wild west because this has never been done before. This is kind of the first of its kind, and it's the largest of its kind. This is the largest implementation of cognitive engineering in the DoD space right now, the NESD project. And again, like I mentioned, what started at from like 70 to 80 help desks, we're sitting at close to a couple hundred now, and growing, because people are seeing just the benefit of having this type of technology in the DoD space, right? The DoD moves kind of slow, but they're moving. they're liking what they're seeing, because for the government, it's all about time. You can save them time, you're going to be their best friend. So then that's kind of what that is. And on this project, I mean, I was here for 4 months, and the guy who hired me, ended up putting me in a position of leadership. And so again, I'm still pretty brand new to this, but I think it's a testament just to the military kind of mindset, those soft skills that you develop, just learning how to lead people, lead yourself, get after it. He promoted me, put me in a leadership position where I've been ever since. And I'm kind of managing this team. We're the subcontract. GDIT is the prime in this, and so the senior AI engineer and myself, we kind of, he's still the lead, but I'm there in the deputy role. In case he wins the lottery and goes on, that I'm the kind of guy to to kind of step in there and get things done. And it's every day. Even to this day, sometimes you may imposter syndrome may kick in, or different coding challenges, or different technical challenges, or even managerial challenges to kind of all come into play. And so just kind of that whole rigmarole of figuring out how to live out the day-to-day is, it's always a challenge, but it's a rewarding challenge.
Curious on, for your first role, you went straight from a coding boot camp, about 1 year, and it sounded like a front end React mostly type role, and then straight into kind of some machine learning, not just React kind of role. How was that transition? Was it really, really hard? Was it pretty
Yeah.
smooth? Can you just kind of talk about going from kind of front end developer to now this machine engineer?
Yeah, it's kind of like going from like a like a Ford Taurus to like a Ford Mustang, or like it's just like the different speed in what you're traveling at, and the environment. It's just so much faster, so much more. As technology keeps evolving in this space, it just continues to grow, and now it's like I feel like the learning is it's nonstop every day. When you feel like you got something else comes out, or a new way to do technology comes out, and it's the constant problem solving, is always there. And when I first got here, I'd say the first year was tough. It was extremely challenging, like trying to understand, because initially it was like, okay, how do I think like a computer? How do I program a computer? But now it's like, well, how do I get a computer to think like a human? Right? How do I get this machine to now think like a person and have interactions and then code that? and then even sometimes, like, I still sometimes nuke things, but it's just it's an ever growing process. It's an ever challenging process. I don't think there's a day that isn't challenging, that doesn't have its own challenge. And I think being comfortable, with the challenges, with a certain degree of difficulty, and being okay with that, it is something that I've kind of had to kind of like, put in my mind, because, like, again, that first year was just like, it's a whole new, we don't even use IDEs. We have, it's a built-in IDE platform, and the implementation of the AI, so of the machine learning, so there's different algorithms that have been trained or have been used, like linear algorithms. There's different, like, classifiers, like there's like a meta classifier. There's a number of them, and so we kind of have to determine which is the best model to use for our data, right? And so, like, we kind of look at what the scenario is, what we're trying to accomplish, and we run it through our model trainers. We have to run a number of tests and kind of go back and verify the accuracy. We have to verify our parameters. We have to verify what like how accurate our scores are, and there's like industry standards that they have, and just trying to get our data to that specific point, because one of the main challenges that we're running into is with the way, again, everybody enunciates things differently. And when you have, hundreds of applications, the way we say insips is going to be different than the way someone else says insips, right? And so one of the challenges that we frequently have is with the speech to text engines is oftentimes the transcribe will hear insects, like bugs, right? And it's like, no, they're not calling about bugs, right? We know they're calling about insips, but it's just tuning the data and figuring out, okay, what's the best way where we can contextualize all these brand new things that are very unique to the language model, right? Because a language model might have basic conversation items, but when it comes to Navy talk, you have to train it. That's brand new. It doesn't have that. So those are some of the challenges that we're having to kind of like work through, and then use live speech data from the users using different technologies to capture that. And yeah, it's like I said, every day is a challenge. There's always something different, and it's not just writing groovy scripts. It's not just, working with AWS technologies. It's not just typing on the command line, Linux scripts, understanding the SDLC process. I got one of the guys on the team who used PowerShell to kind of help implement one of our automation pipelines. Like, sometimes people have like these automated deployment pipelines, which are already kind of out of the box, right? Like, that are kind of there. We don't have them. That's something that we're having to develop and create. So when we say it's like the Wild Wild West, sometimes it's like, yeah, we kind of just have to really just tap in and dig in and figure out what what the requirement is, and then what technology can we use to solve that problem, and then just make it happen. And the government's been pretty good about it, thus far, just letting us go do our thing. So
It's so fascinating, man. Tell us, how do you get evaluated at work? Is the machine learning role different from the front end as far as how you were evaluated?
Yeah, I would say that this role is it's less formal, if I'm honest. The other role that I was in, I feel like was more traditional. When you think about a software engineering role, it's more traditional. You have your evals, you have your meetings with your one-on-ones with your manager. There's a little bit more expectations as to what you should improve on. With this role, man, when I say it's Wild Wild West, I mean, it the evaluations are very fast and loose, and it's more so metrics driven. And I hate to say it, but it's more so like, well, how does the prime feel? How does the prime feel on our performance? And the prime, will have they'll have these key performance indicators, right? And there's these contractual details that they'll have and say, hey, and again, this is kind of how I'm graded, right? Like, it's a, hey, there's a contractual requirement that you have, and you have to meet X amount of velocity every couple of sprints, and you have to make sure that your team hits that velocity goal. If you don't hit the velocity goal, after like for two or three times in a row, then you get put on a notice, and then they can basically kick you off the project. They can say that your team is not fulfilling the obligations and the requirements, so therefore they can legally get rid of us. And then the secondary thing is the quality. Now, quality, and as you kind of get into the tech world, typically there's a playbook which you go by, and there's a standard definition of terms that everybody has said, yes, we agree upon these words to mean these things. And, when we say, hey, for example, someone is a scrum master or someone is a software developer, well, we're all talking about the same thing. But in this role, it's like, well, you're not just a software developer, you're actually a product owner as well. You're actually someone who gets to interface with the customer and elicit feedback based on the work that you're doing. You get to, see your code in deployment and the metric that it solves the tickets. You get to see that in real time, and you get to determine, hey, did the stuff I put into develop or into prod work or no, right? Because if there's 10 tickets that Amelia is creating, and I'm only resolving one of those tickets, well then, there's 90% things that I could probably do better. And the evaluations, like I said, are fast and loose. And so our prime will look at us and say, hey, quality wise, are you guys now meeting these efficiencies? Are you guys meeting these new metrics, right? And so, and then with the coding, the coding is again, it's, a lot of times you'll have, technical debt as you are kind of in a more like light speed, kind of just rapidly getting things out there. And, like this project, like I mentioned, there's a lot of things that we probably could do better, and that's establishing a more efficient version control, which, we without the ID, we don't really have that. It's more so these automated deployments through a tool that's based on a Java jar file called Conductor. And, this is how you do your deployments. You run a power, like a PowerShell kind of script, and you manually kind of do your efforts. And so when I say that this guy built an automated way to do it, I mean, hey, if this way is an automated way to do it and makes a one-click deployment, then that's the, and it works, and it doesn't pose any security risks, obviously, then that's the way we're going to do things. And so it really allows people to tap into their talents, right? If you got a guy that really enjoys just digging into the latest technologies, well, then we're going to use him to create a technology, or we're going to let him make that technology decision to, use the latest machine learning, platform or neural network to say, hey, I found a way to make our data more efficient, right? I think if we use these different, parameters, I think we can do something a lot more efficient. So I know I kind of went off the rails there, but there is a lot. There's just a lot of different components to it. So, and then again, in this position, like I said, it's not your traditional software development role like I was in previously. It's very different, but it is growing. Like the demand for this kind of thing is growing. Like where people can build these type of products. Like I got hit up the other day for someone wanting to develop a voice automation system, right? Because as we all know, landlines are kind of going away or have gone away, and companies like Skype, people that understand, voice over IP technology, are the people who are going to be leading that conversation when it comes to voice engineering. Like that's the future. And I know Cisco has a lot of like the networks and routers, and they're the ones who kind of built the building blocks. And I work with Cisco pretty often, but they're not the leaders anymore in this VoIP technology setting. We have programs like Variant, we have programs like Skype, even Skype, and then obviously AWS, Azure. Like a lot of them have kind of tapped into this technology where they understand like this is the future, this is the way it's going to be, and we have to kind of adapt. And so, yeah, but that company, they're like, yeah, I mean, we're looking for somebody to build it from scratch. And, they passed on me, but, that would have been a crazy endeavor for sure to kind of go down to develop some type of system like that, like the one we're working on.
Yeah. And kind of with that then, so like if whether it be a coding boot camp student, whether it be veterans getting it out, someone in college, is there any kind of path you would recommend to get into kind of the machine learning, this kind of field you're in right now versus just your more common front end development?
Yeah. So, and some I've learned from other folks that are, much more advanced than I am, many more years in the field than I have, is that, these technologies, they come and go, right? I was talking to a guy who's the global strategic engineer over at Converse, and he was telling me that the most important things you can learn are the basics, understanding the basics of the software development lifecycle, understanding how your code goes through the pipeline, understanding how, what you do and how that looks in QA, how that looks in production, how your code looks in an enterprise application. And that can be done through looking at open source, environments, different repos on GitHub, different pathways like that, and understanding those frameworks, and then thinking about the OSI model, right? The OSI model, you have seven different layers, right? And each one of those layers could present a troubleshooting strategy for yourself. And if you just Google that, they have some really nice, cool images for you Marines. I'm sure they have coloring images you guys can use for those kind of things, to color all kinds of colors. But it really is important, in my opinion, to learn that, to learn how does your code move from, say, for example, the hardware layer, right? Because the hardware layer is something we all experienced a breakdown in. And that was the CrowdStrike thing, right? Somebody had an error at that level with code, and that killed a bunch. I think the cost was, $5 billion plus, right, of damages. So learn how code gets affected at that kernel level. And then the next thing is like, okay, at like the network level, right? So with the networking, the infrastructure, learning how, your code moves through there, right? Learning the different ports, learning not just coding, but learning network security, going through and figuring out how, a load balancer works, right? This is stuff that you don't teach you in coding boot camps, but it will make you that much more of a stronger developer learning that kind of stuff. And then obviously, at the application layer, learning, okay, when a user hits my endpoint, right, the application layer, how does my code interact with the user, right? How do I debug that? And as you kind of keep going and growing in your field, and if you can master that, if you can really understand those things, you can do anything in the technical world. I promise you. A lot of people don't know that stuff. A lot of people may have a general understanding of it, but if you can go into detail and you love the tech stuff, there are technical lead positions that you can get into, and I see a lot of people in the tech world that, well, I shouldn't say I see a lot, but I hear of a lot of people that are in those positions, but they don't fully understand those things. And maybe they rely on the people under them to kind of do the thing. But, I think it's just more effective when you're in that position. If you understand the nuts and bolts of things, you'll just be that much more effective, and you'll have that much more influence on your team because, just like in the military, right? You have fresh O1s, fresh O2s, right? Just a bunch of boots coming in there, and, they come into your, your barrack, not your barracks, but they come into your facilities, and everybody's looking at this guy like, okay, he's going to try to run this command, try to run this platoon, okay. And then you have your salty E5s, E6, this is, and, it's like that meme. It's like, who's the real leader here? Like, right. Who really knows what's going on here? And it's like those seasoned guys that have been there, right? Or even those Mustangs, those guys that have gone through enlistment, but then kind of went the officer route. Those Mustangs who come back, it's like those guys, they get it. And right off the back, you could tell they got that different insignia, right? Like, hey, that's a Mustang. They've been through the grind. They get what it's like. And naturally, you just respect them more because they get it. And I think it's the same way like in the technical world. It's like, hey, if you cut your teeth on that OSI stuff, and your tech, you're just gonna get that much more respect versus like, oh hey, so and so figure this out for me, or hey, can you learn this technology? It's the way life works, man, in my experience. And that's what I would recommend for anybody coming up is don't neglect the basics, man. Don't neglect the building blocks, because you understand that, then you can take that, because that's really what machine learning, AI engineering, I mean, yes, there is math, but a lot of these products, a lot of these suites now, like PyTorch or TensorFlow, which is actually being obsolete, but I guess the new one is JAX that Google is coming out with. A lot of these things are written in Python, right? And as long as you understand like those basic elements of how to do a for loop, how to map, how to hash, like you get good at that, man. I'm telling you, the machine learning, the AI, the different stuff, it'll just come more natural to you, right? You won't go from swimming in a kiddie pool to go swimming in the ocean. You'll kind of already made that progression. You'll have kind of filled in the dots and know how to. It won't be easy for sure, but there's definitely a lot of material out there for you to dig into, like Coursera. Coursera has plenty of courses, and now they have Ivy League education, right? You don't even need to go to Harvard anymore, right? They have Python with AI, Python with machine learning from Harvard, from Yale, from Stanford. They have these courses, and you can even do the course and then, get a certificate, put on your LinkedIn, and have your little flash, have your little flare, and be like, hey, I got my course. I did my intro to, Python with Harvard, right? And you continue to build that up, people will see that, and that for me, I'm the kind of person that I just, I would encourage, if you're that person as well, you just never stop learning. Just, enjoy the learning process, enjoy it, because I think it's easy to get caught up and be like chasing something that isn't there, right? Like you're just chasing this thing and you're never fulfilled, right? And wherever you're at in your coding journey, whether you're in the military getting ready to come into this environment or seasoned, I'd say the best thing is to really just be content with what you've learned and be proud of yourself. Take pride in what you've done, in your work, and then build on that. That's kind of what I would say for somebody coming in.
That's really good advice, man. I want to keep touching on the AI aspect. What's your boldest AI prediction that you've got?
It'll all just kind of fail. What I mean by that is like, I don't think it'll all fail, but I think the hype, maybe
no more ChatGPT.
Yeah, the large, it's interesting because a lot of these large language models, they started with the intent to be translation services, to kind of like provide more of a translation, to kind of provide people who are speaking multiple languages. So that's why out of the box, a lot of them are multilingual already. And so you have these things called, what GPT stands for is generative pre-trained transformer, right? And so the transformer is like the under the hood technology that allows it to kind of have that firepower to do the thing, right? You have these GPUs, these graphical process units, right? And the idea is, the more you have, if you have enough, you'll become a human, right? You'll achieve AGI. And, it's always fascinating to hear people like Elon or what's his name? I don't know my Zuckerberg, right? And they just recently talked. I mean, Meta just came out with the new Llama model. It's the most efficient model thus far, exceeding ChatGPT 4.0. And it's open source. I mean, dude, that's a game changer right there. That didn't exist really before, but now that does exist, it does open the doors to really get the general pop into making it something unique and great, like the Linux system. Like that's Mark's. That's like his inspiration. He's seeing Linux, how Linux went to the open, the source, and how it's become so revolutionary. People can kind of do their takes on it. That's what he's wanting for this, this new Llama model. And I really do think it could be something great. But I think to keep in mind, it at the end of the day, it's statistical predictability, right? It's statistical analysis to generate something of, relation to what you're asking. And I always find it fascinating. Like if you were to go in a GPT or some LLM and you were to ask it, how many R's are in strawberry, right? This is one of the things that breaks all models. And it'll be like, oh, it'll give you the wrong answer.
I've heard like renderer as well.
Yeah, just like,
Yeah.
Because what it does is, again, it's a statistical analysis. So under the hood, it takes these neural networks and it runs it through its as many parameters as it has, and it goes da, 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 right. And whenever you do a in statistics, it's always like it's a double value, right? It's you have like 1.000 or like 39, right? And so you're never going to get that singular number, right? Unless you train the model, unless you prompt engineer it. But if you don't out of the box, that's why it's going to round up. It's going to say, oh, and the back on the inside, it's going to say 3.67, right? But to human, it's like, what? No. So it'll give you 4. It'll say, well, there's 4, and you're like, no, that's not true. There's actually 3. But because of the analysis, the way it kind of the engine has run, it'll just give you that whole number. And so but I do think that there is a lot of good that AI can do. But I also think, we have to keep, be realistic about how complex humans are, right? Like humans are so complex. Even a single cell is just light years beyond our understanding. Just the gigafactories that are within a cell, right, are insane. And so, I think they say that the human brain has about, 156 trillion different neurons firing off. And I think right now with the latest NVIDIA, was it H100, I think we're hitting maybe 3 trillion parameters, right? So we got a little ways to go, and to even get to that human element. But I do think that there is, there's a lot of good. There's a lot more jobs I think that can be created from this, and does it kind of, and it's this whole paradigm of like, does it take more jobs? Does it take away the fast food workers' job at McDonald's from being at the checkout? And everybody has their opinion on all these selfless checkouts at Walmart now. Or like, I missed the human interaction. I mean, and then kind of what we're working on, in essence, is a tier 1 agent, but in a cognitive form. So, I mean, in some ways that it kind of is making people, have to consider leveling up and kind of, in increasing their skill set. And it is in some way can be ethical. There's some ethical decisions to be made for sure. But, I don't think in my lifetime, I don't think we'll see anything too crazy. But I don't know. Elon wants to go to Mars. So, maybe we can get to Mars.
That'll probably be the craziest thing, man. Well, Tony, it's been really awesome having you on. This has been truly fascinating. I'm sure we can go for another hour and dive deep into machine learning and AI and ask and pick your brain and get your opinions on the future on this topic. But we want to thank you again. It's been awesome. We'll drop your LinkedIn in the show description, and just can't thank you enough, man.
Yeah, man, it's been an honor. I truly do. When you hit me up asking if I wanted to talk, yeah, I definitely am honored. It's a privilege to speak to the veteran community and pay it forward. If there's somebody that kind of sees what I'm doing and wants to do what I'm doing, or at least something similar, man, please hit me up. I am more than happy to chat, or listen, whatever's needed, and help you get on the path, man. Because somebody did it for me, so I want to pay it forward and help somebody else.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Tony. Thanks again for being on. To our listeners, we'll link to any resources we talked about, Tony talked about in the description, and we'll also put our socials in the description if you want to reach out to us. That's all. Thanks, Tony.